Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. You already know where I'm going to start. Columbus, Ohio, that top 10 matchup between Penn State and Ohio State. This one, even a Tuesday, Wednesday of last week, you could feel everything building towards Saturday in Columbus. Two top 10 teams, undefeated. Both teams kind of needing a win to validate themselves. And I think this one felt different even from other Penn State, Ohio State games for all the reasons that we talked about on the show throughout the week. Ohio State's coming in banged up. Penn State basically coming off of a double bye. They had a bye and then they played UMass. Ohio State doesn't feel quite as elite as they've been. Penn State has been telling us since August that this is the most talented team that they have had under James Franklin. So you felt like even if there was a gap, not quite as big, if there is a gap at all, and it really felt like this was the week people were finally starting to buy into Penn State. Unfortunately, this Penn State-Ohio State game looked pretty much like every other Penn State-Ohio State game since 2016, as Penn State certainly had their chances. Penn State was in the game for most of the entire afternoon, and they didn't make the plays when they needed to. They came up short, and they lose 20-12 in Columbus. Worth noting, by the way, 6 of those points came on a touchdown with under 2 minutes to go, so it wasn't as though this was a really close game in the final few minutes. But yeah, Penn State loses. This felt like the year they were finally going to get him. And let me just say this. I've been hesitant on this show to really go after James Franklin, but I think bluntly, for all the reasons I just laid out, this one falls on him, and a guy who has taken so much wrath from his fan base, I think deserves every bit of it today coming out of this Penn State-Ohio State game. And before we get to all the miscues, let me say a couple things here. One, I know there's shows, oh, you got to credit Ohio State. And I do want to credit Ohio State. And I do think there is a segment of Penn State fans that would sit there and say, look, Torres, come on, man. You're being too tough. Ohio State is an elite defense. Ohio State was at home. Penn State lost its best edge rusher. Come on, man. Like, somebody had to lose that game, and it just so happened to be us. And maybe there aren't a lot of Penn State fans that feel that way, but I'm sure there are some. What I would say to that is, yes, let's credit Ohio State. The defense is elite, and we'll certainly talk about the strengths and weaknesses of Ohio State momentarily. But at the same time, I feel awful about the Chop Robinson situation. I'm not saying that injuries are ever anything you root for or whatever, but Ohio State was plenty banged up coming to this game. So don't sell me on injuries, and don't sell me on, well, it's Ohio State, everything's still ahead of us. Yes, I get it. But, and I get Michigan's at home. But again, this was the year. This is not an elite Ohio State team by Ohio State's own standards. And you know how I know that? Because Gus and Joel talked about it on the broadcast. They said that James Franklin said that in their meeting. So don't tell me it's Ohio State and they're great and, credit to them. Why are you blaming Penn State? This one to me falls on Penn State. And again, it falls on James Franklin. And it was a game where it didn't feel like Penn State was well prepared. Didn't feel like they were well coached. Didn't really feel like they did anything well, if we're being honest. First of all, the offense was abysmal. Okay. 255 yards of total offense. And a lot of it came again on that final scoring drive with whatever it was, 2, 3, 4 minutes to go. Beyond that, Drew Aller, who we have been sold is finally the answer at the quarterback position. Well, he wasn't on Saturday. 18 of 43 passing. Obviously, the late touchdown, but he was not good. He missed so many throws. And listen, part of it was that, again, credit to the Ohio State defense. And part of it is, yes, you can't blame James Franklin because his quarterback missed some throws. But I didn't love the play calling. It felt super conservative. And then, oh, by the way, even if you want to say that Drew Aller did not have his best game, I would agree with you. But at the same time, how many different coaches, offensive coordinators, and quarterbacks do we have to go through before something clicks, right? Like we've been told for all these years, Sean Clifford can't beat the big boys. Well, wait until we get Drew Aller. A year ago, it was wait until we get Drew Aller. And he did not live up to anyone's expectations. He wasn't good enough. And some of it falls on him, but some of it falls on the coaching staff for the positions that they put him in. By the way, the rest of the stats are abysmal, okay? Couldn't really run the ball, still tried to run the ball, put yourself in a lot of third and longs, but how about this first stat? 1 of 16 on third downs. I mean, that is insane. 1 of 16 third down conversions. It was just, it was unbelievable to watch. It was unbelievable to see in person. And so again, it falls to me on Franklin because I get it. Good team on the road. Nothing's ever going to go perfect, but I can point to 3, 4, 5 moments in that game where I either thought it was just abysmal coaching or poor coaching or unprepared players. I mean, think about it like this. Think about all of the situations that happened throughout that game that you can sit there and point to the Penn State coaching, play calling, whatever. One, first of all, it was like the second or third drive. You pick up 2 big rushing plays back to back, and you're like, okay, here we go. Run game's going with Nick Singleton. Immediately throw 3 straight passes. Didn't make sense. Don't capitalize on that. That's early. Later on in the first half, big moment in time. You pin Ohio State back by its goal line. They're screwed. They can't get out of their own way. They can't do anything right. You set up the punt. Your punt returner is back. He returned 2 punts last week. I think his feet are on right around the 50-yard line. Lets the punt go over his head, rolls about 25 more yards, becomes a 71-yard punt. What should have been the best field position you had all game, all of a sudden, boom, becomes a 70-plus yard drive that you are unable to capitalize on. Late in the game, backed up against your own goal line. Drew Aller, 3rd and short. What do? Drop him back and swing past the guy. He is 6'5", 6'5", 240, 250 pounds, whatever he is. Listen, I get you don't ever want to get your quarterback hurt. Put him under center, get the first down, move the chains, give yourself a chance. And then finally, I thought this was the worst that I saw on Saturday, is late in the game, about 7 minutes left. Penn State is down by a touchdown. Penn State has the ball, and Joel Klatt is on the broadcast saying, you got 2, maybe 3 possessions left. You can't waste this one. But you're inside your own 50. You are backed up. How about this? And this drove me crazy. You have 3rd and 3, okay? Again, this is with 7 minutes to go. You're going to get the ball back if your defense can get a stop, which it has done all game long. 3rd and 3, you throw a pass, incompletion, surprise, surprise. That's all Drew Aller did on Saturday. Incomplete pass for 4th down. At that point, you kind of assume you're going to punt it, right? Well, crap, 7 minutes left. You're going to have another possession. You're going to get the ball back, whatever. Instead, they go for it on 4th down. And so I'm sitting there saying, like, if you were going to go for it on 4th down, why are you throwing crappy swing passes that your quarterback can't throw and that your receivers can't catch? Because if that's the case, hand the ball off, get a yard, and then get 2 more, and then move. If it's 4 down territory, you don't need to be throwing passes. So I could go on and on and on. But this, to me, all falls on the head coach. Because all these years, it's just not good enough. The raw stats tell you everything you need to know, okay? James Franklin, this stat is stunning. Against top 10 teams, James Franklin is now 3-16 against top 10 teams as the Penn State head coach. Oh, by the way, 0-10 on the road. We crushed Jimbo Fisher because he can't pick up a big win on the road. Well, it's much the same with James Franklin. But to me, here is the part that really trips me up, okay? What you really have to do is go back 2 years, the fall of 2021. Now, that was the year Penn State was good early. Sean Clifford gets hurt against Iowa. I remember talking about it on this show. Sean Clifford goes down, team struggles, but that was the year LSU was open and USC was open. And James Franklin signs that massive extension, okay? And so to me, this is where I would be frustrated if I was a Penn State fan. I would be frustrated because when James Franklin signed that contract, he basically said, our commitment as a program has been good, but we aren't at the Ohio State SEC level where we are all in, where we are willing to do whatever it takes to win at the highest level. If I'm going to come back, it's not just about paying me. It's about putting an infrastructure in place to get to the level that those teams are at. And so it drives me crazy when coaches beg, money, this, facilities, that, staff, this, staff, that. This was my criticism of Mark Stoops when he was whining about NIL the other day. You've been given everything you want. At some point, go out and win a meaningful game late in the season, Mark Stoops. Okay. Hate to be critical. It's true. And it's the same with James Franklin. Okay. You've been given everything. I'm not saying you have to beat the best Ohio State team that has ever played, but Justin Fields wasn't on that field. Okay. Marvin Harrison was elite, but he didn't have his number 2 guy there. This wasn't 2 years ago, 3 years ago when you're facing Justin Fields, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, whoever. It's a very good Ohio State team, and we'll get to Ohio State in a minute. But at the same time, like, it's not even that you lost. It was the manner in which you did it. You coached scared. You looked unprepared. You looked confused in the big moments. And I'm sorry. But if you're going to ask of your fan base, I think your fans deserve better than what they got on Saturday. James Franklin letting his team down. Credit to Ohio State. But again, that was if I was grading James Franklin, C- D for that game, it was just an abomination.